Imagine this. For the last 30 years, maybe longer, men have been told day in and day out that everything natural about them is the problem. Their strength, toxic, their drive, oppressive, their desire to protect, provide, and build. Somehow the root of all evil in the modern world. They were lectured, shamed, canceled, fired, divorced, and dragged through courts for daring to be men. And then, when the noise got too loud, when the rules kept moving, when the goalposts turned into mirages, a whole generation of men did something that nobody saw coming. They didn't scream, they didn't riot, they simply walked away. Quietly, calmly, and permanently, they went their own way, built small, peaceful, minimalist lives. And for the first time in decades, they found something the modern world swore they could never have: peace. But now, right now, as the economy crumbles, as cities decay, as everything women were promised would liberate them collapses under its own weight, the same voices that told men to disappear are suddenly desperately begging them to come back. And today, I'm going to take you through exactly how we got here, why men are never coming back, and why, by the end of this video, you're going to understand something so crystal clear that it might just change the way you see the entire world. Stay with me to the very last second because the final 5 minutes are going to hit harder than anything you've heard on this platform in years. If you want more raw, no filter, angry guy breakdowns like this one, smash that like button right now. Marstau, share this video with every man you know who needs to hear it, and subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss an upload. And listen, if you're serious about taking control of your financial future in this collapsing economy, go click the link in the description and join Angry's Crypto Academy today. That's where I teach regular guys, step by step, how to buy, sell, trade, and protect their wealth in the only market that still rewards men who think for themselves. The Academy is linked down below. Go check it out right now while it's still on your mind. And if these videos are hitting home, if they're waking you up or keeping you sane, consider buying me a Red Bull through the link in the description. Every can keeps the fire coming. Let's go back to the beginning because this didn't happen overnight. This was decades in the making. Picture a young man in the 1990s. He grew up being told that if he worked hard, stayed loyal, treated people right, and built something real, he would be rewarded. That was the social contract. Get a job, get married, have kids, buy a house, retire at 65 with a pension and a gold watch. That was the deal. And for a while, a lot of men actually got close to it. But then, slowly at first, the rules started changing. The jobs started disappearing overseas. The pensions evaporated. The university started telling his sons that they were the problem just for being born male. The courts started treating marriage like a wealth extraction program with his name on it. And the culture started a full scale war on everything he was. By the early 2000s, the messaging was no longer subtle. Television shows portrayed fathers as bumbling idiots who needed their wives and daughters to save them from their own stupidity. Movies celebrated the strong, independent woman who didn't need a man, while simultaneously mocking the men who tried to stand next to her. And then the internet exploded, and with it came an endless fire hose of think pieces, viral threads, and viral videos telling men in 1,000 different ways that the very things that made them men, ambition, competitiveness, stoicism, protection, provision, were now sins. And men, being men, tried to adapt. They really did. They went to therapy. They cried on camera. They apologized for things they never did. They read the books, took the seminars, learned the new language. They said, yes, I'm part of the problem, just to keep the peace. They swallowed it all, hoping that if they just bent far enough, the storm would pass. But the storm never passed. It only got louder. By the 2000s, the goalposts weren't just moving, they were on fire and being launched into orbit. Believe all women became the new commandment, no evidence required. A single accusation, true or false, could end a man's career, his reputation, his life. Due process? Gone. Innocent until proven guilty? That was now a tool of the patriarchy. And the worst part, the part that still makes my blood boil when I say it out loud, is that millions of men watched good men, decent men, hardworking men get destroyed for things they didn't do. And the same society that destroyed them turned around and said, well, if you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear. And that was the moment, the exact moment when something deep inside the male psyche snapped. Not with anger, not yet. It was colder than anger. It was clarity. Men looked around and realized the game was rigged beyond repair. The rewards they were promised for playing by the rules no longer existed. Marriage? A legal contract where he had all the obligations and she had all the options. Fatherhood? A biological miracle he could be separated from with the stroke of a judge's pen. Dating? A minefield where one wrong word could brand him a predator forever. Work? 80-hour weeks for companies that would lay him off the second the stock price dipped, all while being told his privilege made him the bad guy for wanting fair treatment. So men did the most rational thing possible under the circumstances. They opted out. They didn't declare war. They didn't burn cities down. They just left the game. Some moved to the woods. Some moved to the gym. Some moved to Thailand or Colombia or the Philippines. Some just moved into a small apartment with a gaming PC, a pull-up bar, and a brokerage account. They cut their expenses to the bone, stacked their money, lifted heavy weights, ate clean, and for the first time in their adult lives, they experienced something the modern world told them they weren't allowed to have. Peace! They called it different names. Some called it MGTOW, men going their own way. Some just called it freedom. But whatever the label, the result was the same. Millions of men, quietly, without fanfare, walked away from a society that had made it crystal clear it no longer wanted or needed them, at least not as men. And for years, almost nobody noticed. The media didn't care. The politicians didn't care. Women, by and large, didn't care. In fact, a lot of women celebrated it. We don't need men, became the rallying cry. Men are obsolete. The future is female. Remember those slogans? They were everywhere. Billboards, t-shirts, TED Talks, you name it. And men heard it loud and clear. So they kept walking. Fast forward to 2024, 2025. The economy is in shambles. Inflation has eaten the middle class alive. Rent is unaffordable. Groceries cost more than car payments used to. The birth rate has collapsed. Marriage rates are at all-time lows. And suddenly, almost overnight, the tone changes. Now go on TikTok any day of the week, and you will see video after video of women in their late 20s, 30s, sometimes 40s, sitting in their cars or their overpriced apartments, tears streaming down their faces, saying the same thing. Where have all the good men gone? I can't do this alone. I'm exhausted. I thought I wanted a career in independence, but now I'm broke and lonely, and I just want a good man to take care of me. And the comments, oh, the comments are pure poetry. Thousands of men, calmly, without rage, simply writing, well, you told us you didn't need us. You told us to leave you alone. We did. Good luck with the bear. Because remember that poll, the one that went viral where they asked women, would you rather be stuck in the woods with a bear or a man? And millions of women picked the bear. Millions. They said men were more dangerous than a literal wild predator. And men saw that, screenshot it, saved it. And when women started coming back with the I'm ready to settle down now videos, men just pointed to the bear meme and said, cool, he's single, he's got fur, he can keep you warm. Go ask him for a mortgage. And here's the part that nobody wants to say out loud, but everybody knows is true. Men aren't angry anymore. That's the scariest part for the people who spent decades poking the bear, pun intended. Men aren't raging. They're not plotting revenge. They're not even particularly bitter. They're just done. They found peace in the gym, peace in their investments, peace in their small circles of brothers who actually have their backs. They've discovered that life is actually pretty good when you remove the drama, the manipulation, the endless criticism, and the legal liabilities. And now society is waking up to a nightmare it created. All the systems that actually work, plumbing, electrical grids, trucking, construction, policing, firefighting, the military, are overwhelmingly run by men. And those men are retiring, quitting, or simply refusing to participate at the level society once took for granted. The incentives are gone. Why risk your life, your health, your freedom for a society that spent your entire life telling you you're the problem? So when women post those crying videos now, begging men to step up, men just smile and keep scrolling. When politicians and corporations scream about the labor shortage, men shrug and keep building their online businesses. When the media runs another hit piece about how men are failing to launch, men laugh because they launched, just not in the direction anyone expected. This is the part of the story where everything flips. Hey guys, in a world pushing you to own nothing and be happy, crypto is your key to survival. Join Angry's Crypto Academy to master buying, selling, and trading crypto. Make huge profits and safeguard your wealth. Plus, discover the one crypto virtually no one is talking about, poised to create new millionaires in the upcoming bull run. The link is in the description of the video below. Go check it out now. Because the same women who spent the last 20 years saying, I don't need a man, are now discovering that actually, yes, they kind of do. Not for love, not for romance, but for survival. Rent doesn't care about your girl boss mantra. Inflation doesn't care about your body count discourse. The electric company doesn't accept empowerment as payment. And when the economy finally tips over, and it's tipping faster than anyone wants to admit, all those independent lifestyles that were propped up by cheap credit corporate jobs and government handouts are going to vanish overnight. And men know this. That's why they're not coming back. They're not coming back to marriage. They're not coming back to dating apps. They're not coming back to 60-hour work weeks for companies that hate them. They're not coming back to a society that only calls them when the ship is sinking and expects them to die fixing the hole. Men have finally learned the lesson that women were screaming at them for decades. They don't need anyone else to be happy. They really don't. A man with a clear mission, a strong body, a growing bank account, and a small tribe of loyal brothers is one of the most dangerous creatures on planet Earth because he has nothing left to lose and everything to protect. And that, my friends, is where we are right now in history. We are watching the greatest quiet revolution the world has ever seen. Not with guns, not with protests, but with silence, with absence, with the most powerful statement a man can make in a society that hates him. Fine, you win. I'm gone. And the craziest part? They're happier than they've ever been. Now let's slow the frame down for a second and really look at what's happening in those tear-streaked car videos that flood TikTok every single day, because they all follow the same script, almost like someone handed out a template. You've seen them. A woman in her mid to late 30s, maybe early 40s, makeup running, voice cracking, phone propped up on the dashboard. She starts soft. I just worked a 12-hour shift. I came home. The cat threw up. I have no food in the fridge. My rent went up again, and I am so tired. Then the volume rises. Where are all the good men? Where are the men who want to build something? Where are the providers? I did everything right. I got the degree. I built the career. I traveled. I lived my truth. And now I'm alone and I can't do this anymore. And the comments underneath are a masterclass in collective male restraint. No insults, no gloating, just calm, surgical precision. You said you didn't need us. We believed you. You chose the bear. Enjoy the bear. We're right here, just not where you left us. Passport bros are in Medellin right now paying $500 a month for penthouses. Good luck. That last one always makes me laugh because it's so brutally true. The men who figured this out early aren't sitting around waiting for permission to live well. They're gone. They sold the overpriced house they never wanted, cashed out the 401k before the next crash, bought a one-way ticket, and now they're drinking fresh coconut water on a balcony while some corporate girl boss back home is arguing with her cat about who's going to fix the leaky faucet. But let's be honest for a second, because this is where the story gets uncomfortable for a lot of people watching. A lot of these women aren't lying when they say they're exhausted. They really are. The life that was sold to them as liberation turned out to be a second full time job on top of the first one: career, side hustle, fitness routine, therapy appointments, content creation, dating apps, brunch with the girls to complain about men. It never ends. And the worst part, there's no finish line. There's no moment where they get to exhale and say, okay, I made it. Now I can rest. Because the second they slow down, the algorithm stops paying attention. The boss starts looking for someone younger and hungrier, and the rent still comes due. So when they cry on camera and say, I was lied to, they're not wrong. They were lied to, just not by the people they think. They were lied to by professors who told them men and women are identical and interchangeable. They were lied to by influencers who told them having a high body count has no consequences. They were lied to by corporations that convinced them leaning in would make them happy while quietly replacing them with cheaper overseas labor the moment it became profitable. They were lied to by a culture that said motherhood is oppression and renting a one bedroom in a crumbling city at 40 is empowerment. And the biggest lie of all, that men would stick around forever, no matter how badly they were treated, because male loyalty is infinite and unconditional. Turns out it's not. Turns out when you spend 30 years telling a creature that has built every civilization in human history that he is the source of all evil, he eventually believes you and acts accordingly. And when he acts accordingly, he doesn't do it with drama. He does it with logistics, plane tickets, gym memberships, crypto wallets, offshore bank accounts, vasectomy appointments, one way moves to countries where his dollars stretch further and his peace is legally protected. That's the part nobody wants to say out loud. This isn't a tantrum, this is strategy. Every day, another man wakes up, looks at the life he's been told he's supposed to want: marriage, mortgage, minivan, college tuition for kids who will grow up to hate him, does the math, and quietly says, hard pass. And then he executes. He gets the remote job or builds the online business. He moves to a lower cost city or a lower cost country. He lifts 4 days a week, eats ribeyes, sleeps 8 hours, and stacks sats while the world burns. And 6 months later, his friends barely recognize him. Shoulders broader, bank account fatter, face calmer. He doesn't talk about women anymore. He doesn't talk about society anymore. He just lives. And the craziest part is how fast it compounds. One guy does it, posts a picture on Instagram from a beach in Bali with the caption, peace everything. 10 of his followers see it and think, wait, I could do that? 6 months later, those 10 have become 50. A year later, it's 500. Now it's millions. Quietly. No protests, no manifestos, just results. I want you to really let this next part sink in, because this is the part that keeps the blue pill crowd up at night. Men have discovered something women spent decades trying to convince them wasn't possible. They are complete on their own, not broken, not incomplete, not work in progress, complete. A man with a mission, a man who can squat 3 plates, deadlift 4, who has 6 months of expenses in the bank and another 6 in Bitcoin, who wakes up every day and the first voice he hears is his own, not some screaming harpy on the internet telling him he's garbage. That man is one of the most powerful forces on earth, because he has zero incentive to lie, zero incentive to compromise, and zero incentive to come running when the music stops and the bill comes due. And that's exactly what's happening right now. The music is stopping and the economy is contracting. faster than the experts want to admit. Real wages haven't risen in decades. Home ownership for under 40s is collapsing. Fertility rates are below replacement in every developed country on earth. And for the first time in human history, a huge percentage of men are looking at the traditional script: marriage, kids, house, retirement, and saying, yeah, I'm good. Not because they hate women, not because they're afraid of women, but because the juice is no longer worth the squeeze. The risk reward ratio is laughable. Why sign up for a deal where you have 100% of the obligation and 5% of the authority? Why volunteer to be a walking ATM for someone who has been culturally trained to see you as an oppressor? Why build a life with someone when every statistic says there's a 50% chance she'll blow it up and take half your stuff plus your kids plus 20 years of your income? Men looked at that deal and said, no thanks. And now the same people who wrote that deal are shocked, I tell you, that men aren't lining up to sign it. Yeah, I want to read you something that went viral a few months ago. A woman posted a long thread on Twitter that essentially said, I make six figures, I own my own home, I'm educated, I'm fit, I have no kids, and I cannot find a man who will commit. What is wrong with men? And the top reply, with hundreds of thousands of likes, was one sentence: you're not a prize, you're a liability with good marketing. That's it. That's the whole game in 9 words. Because here's the secret nobody wants to say out loud. Once men remove the cultural programming, once they see the matrix code for what it is, the entire house of cards collapses. The dating market isn't broken because men are broken. The dating market is broken because men finally have options that don't involve self destruction. Think about it. For the first time in history, an average man can work remotely from anywhere in the world, minus earn in a strong currency while living in a weak one. Date women who haven't been brainwashed to see masculinity as a threat. Build wealth outside a system that punishes productivity, and stay physically stronger and healthier than 95% of people around him. And do all of it without ever signing a marriage certificate or co-signing a mortgage with someone who can ruin him on a whim. That's not failure to launch. That's the most successful launch in human history. And women know it. That's why the panic is setting in. That's why you're seeing article after article with headlines like The Rise of Lonely Single Men, written by people who spent 20 years celebrating the rise of lonely single women. That's why pastors and politicians and corporate CEOs are suddenly very concerned about men checking out. That's why every dating app is hemorrhaging male users while female users complain there's nobody left to match with. Because men didn't just walk away from women. They walked away from the entire plantation. And the plantation is starting to notice the labor shortage. You see it in the military recruitment numbers. You see it in the trucking companies offering $100,000 signing bonuses nobody's taking. You see it in the construction sites sitting empty. You see it in the marriage statistics. You see it every time another blue city mayor begs for federal bailouts because the tax base is collapsing while simultaneously calling half the population toxic. Men are the ultimate silent strike in human history. And the best part, it's completely legal, it's completely peaceful, and it's completely unstoppable. Because you can't force a man to care about a society that hates him. You can't shame a man into sacrificing for people who celebrate his destruction. You can't guilt a man into building a life he doesn't want with people who spent his entire youth telling him he's the villain. All you can do is watch him walk. And that's exactly what millions of men are doing right now. Walking calmly, quietly, relentlessly. They're walking to the gym at 5 a.m. while the world sleeps. They're walking to their laptops to build businesses that don't require HR approval. They're walking onto planes with one-way tickets to places where their money and their masculinity are still celebrated. That they're walking into barber shops and coffee shops and jujitsu gyms where other men who get it nod and say, "Welcome home, brother." And they're not looking back because for the first time in their lives, they finally understand the most dangerous truth a man can ever learn. His peace is more valuable than your approval. And once a man knows that, deep in his bones, nothing can ever make him trade it away again. The silence is deafening now, and that's exactly how they like it. Every day, another headline screams about the crisis of masculinity. Another think piece wonders why young men aren't dating. Another university study panics about plunging testosterone levels. Another politician blames video games or porn or Jordan Peterson or whatever boogeyman is trending this week. And every single time, millions of men just scroll past, sip their black coffee, hit another set of pull ups, and keep building the life nobody gave them permission to live. Because the truth is, the old levers don't work anymore. Shame doesn't work. Guilt doesn't work. Calling them losers doesn't work. Calling them cowards doesn't work. Threatening to take away sex that most of them never had in the first place definitely doesn't work. The hamster wheel still spins, but the hamsters got off years ago and nobody noticed until the wheel started smoking. Let me paint you a picture of what the average red pill aware man's life looks like in 2025, because this is the part that terrifies the establishment more than anything else. He wakes up at 5:30 without an alarm because his circadian rhythm is locked in from years of discipline. He drinks a liter of water, throws on shorts, and walks to a private gym or a garage rig where the only voices he hears are the ones on his playlist telling him to get stronger. By 7 a.m., he's already done more for himself than most people do all day. He showers, makes eggs and ribeye, sits down at a standing desk that costs less than 1 month of child support would have, and starts working. Maybe he's a software developer pulling $180,000 remote for a US company while living in Georgia, the country, not the state. Maybe he runs an e commerce brand that prints money while he sleeps. Maybe he trades futures or builds faceless YouTube channels or flips options. Doesn't matter. The point is, his income is location independent, his expenses are microscopic, and nobody can fire him for his opinions. By noon, he's done with the money making part of the day. He trains jujitsu or Muay Thai with other men who also woke up and chose violence against mediocrity. They bow, they roll, they slap hands, they talk about macros and market deltas and passport pages. Never about drama, never about where the good women went. Then he eats again, usually a massive bowl of ground beef, rice, and avocado that costs him $6 and keeps him anabolic for the next 6 hours. Afternoon is for reading or creating or walking in the sun with a podcast in his ears that isn't telling him he's broken. He might cold plunge. He might take a quick power nap. He might fire off a few trades while sitting on a balcony overlooking mountains or an ocean that his ex girlfriends back home can only visit if they take on credit card debt. Evenings are simple. Maybe he meets the same 5 or 6 brothers for wings and zero sugar soda while they roast each other and talk about the next piece of land they're eyeing in Texas or Tennessee or Paraguay. Maybe he stays home, plays some chess online, watches a classic film, and is asleep by 10 p.m. so he can do it all again tomorrow. No dating apps, no begging for attention, no arguing about whose turn it is to take the trash out. No coming home to a woman who resents him for existing. No stepping on eggshells because he said the wrong word and now HR is involved. No waking up at 3 a.m. wondering if tonight is the night she decides to call the cops and claim he looked at her funny. And just peace, deep, unbreakable peace. And the craziest part, he's not even rich yet. Most of these guys are still early in the journey. They're making 80,000, 120,000, 150,000 a year, sometimes less. But because they live like monks with a mission, they save 60, 70, 80% of it. They're on track to have seven figures liquid before most of their college classmates have paid off their student loans for degrees that got them a job asking if you want fries with that. That's the cheat code nobody saw coming. When you remove women, remove status games, remove the need to impress anyone, the average man becomes a wealth creation machine in about 18 months. It's almost unfair how fast it happens. And women feel it. They feel the absence like a cold wind. They walk into bars now and it's tumbleweeds. They open the apps and it's crickets. They go to their high school reunions and the guys who used to simp for them are shredded, calm, and politely distant. Those guys don't hate them. They don't even dislike them. They just have zero incentive to engage. It's like trying to flirt with a Buddhist monk who already took a vow of celibacy and has a 9-figure crypto portfolio. Good luck. I want to pause here and tell you a quick story that perfectly illustrates where we are. About a year ago, a very pretty, very successful 34-year-old lawyer in Manhattan posted a TikTok that blew up. She was sitting in her $6,000 a month apartment, designer everything, crying because she had just been ghosted by a guy she thought was below her league. She couldn't understand it. She made $500,000 a year. She had a master's from an Ivy. She did Pilates 6 days a week. And this guy was some mid-level project manager who lived in New Jersey, just stopped responding after 3 dates. The comments destroyed her, but not with cruelty, with facts. Top comment, 400,000 likes. He looked at your Instagram, saw 47 different countries, 12 different situationships, and a highlight reel called My Truth, did the math, and chose peace. Respect the decision. Another one. He makes 110,000, has no debt, lifts 5 days a week, and is moving to Portugal next year. You're not dating up, sweetheart. You're dating sideways into a life sentence. And the one that made me stand up and applaud. You offered him a chance to be your retirement plan. He offered you the opportunity to be his peace. He chose correctly. That's it. That's the entire shift in one exchange. Women spent decades being told their value was in their degrees, their passports, their ability to match a man's income. Men spent the last 10 years quietly realizing that none of that matters if being around you feels like a second job with no benefits and a high probability of prison. Peace became the ultimate luxury good, and men figured out how to manufacture it themselves. And once a man has peace, trying to lure him back into chaos is like trying to convince a billionaire to trade his yacht for a leaky rowboat because the rowboat has character. Not happening. That's why the Where Have All the Good Men Gone videos keep coming, and they keep getting worse because every month that passes, another 100,000 men level up and disappear from the radar. Every month, another cohort of 25-year-olds watches the 35-year-olds cry on the internet and says, yeah, I'm not doing that. Every month, the gap widens, and the gap is now a canyon. On one side, you have women who are told the best years of their lives were the ones spent finding themselves, traveling, career climbing, sleeping around, collecting experiences like Pokemon cards. On the other side, you have men who spent those same years getting strong, getting rich, getting quiet, and getting gone. There is no bridge big enough to cross that canyon anymore. The materials don't exist. I need you to understand how final this is. This isn't a phase. This isn't a tantrum. This isn't something that gets fixed with a few viral videos of pastors telling men to man up. Men have already manned up. They manned up so hard, they built entire lives that no longer require the system that spent decades trying to destroy them. And the genie is out of the bottle, and he's jacked, financially independent, and speaks fluent Spanish. You can't put him back. You can beg. You can cry. You can write articles. You can make podcasts. You can promise to be submissive and cook and go halfsies on the bill and never divorce rape him. It doesn't matter. That the trust is gone. Not because men are broken, but because they finally see clearly. They see that love was never the price of admission. Peace was. And peace was never on the table. So they built it themselves. And now that they have it, they will defend it the same way their grandfathers defended islands in the Pacific, with absolute commitment and zero surrender. That's where we are in 2025. We are watching the end of an era that began sometime around 1965 and died sometime around 2023. The era where men were expected to build the world and then apologize for building it. The era where male sacrifice was mandatory and male happiness was optional. The era where a man's role was to shut up, pay up, and show up, even when nobody showed up for him. That era is over, and something new is being born in its place. Something harder, something leaner, something that doesn't ask for permission and doesn't give second chances. Call it whatever you want. MGTOW 2.0, the masculine renaissance, men walking away, the great opt out. The labels don't matter. What matters is that for the first time in living memory, millions of men are free. Truly free, and not the fake freedom women were sold that came with 80-hour work weeks and cats and boxed wine. Real freedom, the kind where the only voice in your head when you wake up is your own. The kind where your body is a weapon, your money works for you, and your circle is small but unbreakable. The kind where nobody can take your peace without your consent, and you stopped giving consent a long time ago. That's the new masculine paradise. And paradise has a strict door policy now: peace or bust. The lights are already flickering, not metaphorically, literally. In cities across the West, the power grid is being held together with duct tape and prayers, while the men who used to maintain it are retiring at record rates and nobody is replacing them. The average age of a skilled lineman in America right now is 55. And the pipeline behind them is a trickle. Because why would a 25-year-old sign up to climb poles in a lightning storm for $48 an hour when he can make triple that trading crypto from a beach in Portugal and never worry about being electrocuted or divorced? The same story is playing out in every critical industry. Truck drivers, welders, plumbers, electricians, farmers, the men who actually keep civilization from sliding back into the Stone Age are aging out, burning out, or simply walking away. And the replacements, they don't exist because the culture spent 2 generations telling boys that manual labor was beneath them, that real men sit in offices, that getting your hands dirty was for losers. And now the pipes are bursting, the trucks aren't moving, the food isn't getting to the shelves. And the people who spent 20 years laughing at dumb tradesmen are suddenly discovering that their gender studies degree doesn't fix a down power line. That's the moment we're living in right now. The moment when ideology meets reality, and reality doesn't negotiate. You've seen the videos coming out of places like California and New York: rolling blackouts, water shortages, garbage piling up in the streets, trains that don't run on time or at all. And every single time something breaks, the same question gets asked: where are the men who used to fix this? They're in the gym, they're in Thailand, they're in their garages building businesses that don't require a boss's permission. They're living lives so far removed from the chaos that they barely even notice it anymore. And the chaos is only going to get louder because the economy that was built on endless debt, endless consumption, and endless male sacrifice is hitting the wall hard. You can feel it when you walk into a grocery store and a carton of eggs costs more than a decent bottle of whiskey. You can feel it when you look at the rent prices and realize that 2 full-time incomes barely cover a 1-bedroom apartment in a neighborhood you wouldn't have parked your car in 20 years ago. You can feel it when you talk to a 30-year-old man who makes $90,000 a year and still lives with roommates because owning a home is now mathematically impossible without a 6-figure down payment. And the people who designed this system, the ones who told women they could have it all, the ones who told men they were the problem, those people are starting to panic because they're realizing that the machine only worked as long as men kept showing up to turn the crank. And the men stopped showing up. They didn't quit in a blaze of glory, they just faded away. One day they were there, grinding, paying taxes, fixing the roads, fighting the wars, raising the kids, keeping the lights on. The next day, they were gone. Not dead, not hiding, just gone. living smaller, quieter, happier lives on the edges of a society that no longer has any claim on them. And now the bill is coming due. I want you to think about what happens when the men who maintain the water treatment plants decide they'd rather maintain their peace instead. When the men who drive the trucks decide they'd rather drive their motorcycles through the mountains of Colombia. When the men who keep the servers running decide they'd rather keep their sanity intact. Because that future isn't coming, it's here. We're already seeing the early stages, supply chain breakdowns, labor shortages in every critical field, infrastructure crumbling faster than it can be repaired. And every time something breaks, the solution isn't more empowerment seminars. It isn't another government program. It isn't another lecture about equity. The solution is men, men who no longer have any incentive to show up. And that's when the real panic begins. That's when the articles stop being about toxic masculinity and start being about where did all the competent men go? That's when the politicians stop talking about reparations and start talking about bringing manufacturing back, except there's nobody left who know how to run the machines. That's when the dating coaches who spent years telling women to raise their standards suddenly pivot and start telling them to lower them fast because the window is closing. Except the window isn't closing, it's already closed. The men didn't just walk away from women, they walked away from the entire social contract. The one that said if you work hard and play by the rules, you'll get a wife, a family, a house, respect, and a quiet retirement. That contract was torn up, burned, and the ashes were scattered years ago. And men looked at the smoking remains and said, cool, we'll build something better. And they did. They built lives where their value isn't measured by how much they're willing to suffer, but by how little they're willing to tolerate. They built lives where their time is their own, their money is their own, their peace is their own. They built lives where the only person they have to answer to is the man in the mirror. And that man doesn't negotiate with chaos. He doesn't come running when the lights go out. He doesn't sacrifice his health, his wealth, or his freedom for people who spent his entire life telling him he was worthless. He just keeps walking, and every day he gets further away. That's the part that keeps the establishment up at night because they finally understand that men weren't the oppressors, men were the infrastructure. And you can't shame infrastructure into coming back once it's gone. You can't guilt a bridge into rebuilding itself. You can't threaten a dam into holding back the flood. You can't beg a power grid into staying online when the men who maintained it have moved on to better things. All you can do is watch the water rise. And the water is rising fast. You see it every time another city has to ration water because the treatment plants are understaffed. Every time another highway bridge gets a D rating because the engineers retired and nobody replaced them. Every time another hospital has to close an ER because there aren't enough men willing to work 80-hour weeks for wages that haven't kept up with inflation since 1973. This isn't hyperbole. This is happening right now. And it's going to get so much worse before it gets better. Because the men who are left, the ones still holding the line, they're watching, they're taking notes, they're counting down the days until they can join their brothers on the other side. They're not heroes, they're not saviors, they're just tired. Tired of being blamed, tired of being taxed, tired of being told their sacrifices are mandatory and their happiness is optional. And one by one, they're laying down the tools. One by one, they're walking off the job. One by one, they're choosing themselves. And when enough of them do it, when the critical mass is reached, the whole thing comes down. Not with a bang, not with a revolution, but with a shrug, the ultimate masculine protest. Fine, you don't need us, cool, figure it out. And they will have to figure it out. Without the men they spent decades telling to go away, without the providers they mocked, without the protectors they vilified, without the builders they regulated into oblivion, just them, their ideologies, and the harsh, unforgiving reality they insisted wasn't real. Good luck. Because the bear isn't coming to save anyone. The bear doesn't pay taxes. The bear doesn't fix power lines. The bear doesn't keep the trucks rolling or the shelves stocked or the water running. The bear just eats you when you run out of options. and winter is coming. And when the collapse accelerates, when it really starts to hurt, that's when the mask comes all the way off. That's when the same voices that spent 20 years screaming, "We don't need men," will pivot overnight to, "How dare you abandon us?" That's when the tears on TikTok turn into rage. That's when the car videos stop being about exhaustion and start being about entitlement. That's when the phrase, "real men would step up," gets weaponized harder than it ever was before. And every man who has been paying attention will hear that phrase and feel exactly one thing: cold, crystal clear recognition that nothing has changed. Because real men would step up never meant real men deserve respect. It never meant real men deserve fairness. It never meant real men deserve peace. It only ever meant one thing: real men would die so we don't have to feel the consequences of our own choices. Bye. That's it. That's the entire translation. And this time, men aren't translating anymore. They're just walking. Picture the scene 5 years from now, maybe less. The grid is brown out half the week. Fuel is rationed. Grocery store shelves look like Soviet Russia on a bad day. The government is printing money like it's trying to start a bonfire. Cities that used to brag about being progressive are now begging rural red state men to come fix their problems because their own populations never learned how to do anything but protest and post. And in the middle of all that, some blue check journalist or some OnlyFans turned talking head or some politician with 3 baby daddies and 0 assets gets on camera, face twisted in righteous fury, and screams, "Where are the men? Real men don't run away when things get hard. Real men stay and fix things. Real men protect women and children, cowards. All of you are cowards." And across the world, millions of men who are eating steak on balconies in Thailand, lifting in private gyms in Texas, fishing in lakes in Eastern Europe, or just chilling in a paid off cabin with a wood stove and a Starlink dish will look up for half a second, shrug, and go right back to living their best life because they'll know the truth. They'll know that real men step up is just the latest version of the same con that sent their grandfathers to die in trenches, their fathers to die in factories, and their older brothers to die in divorce courts. They'll know that the same people screaming for heroes today spent yesterday calling those same heroes toxic, fragile, privileged, and dangerous. They'll know that the women demanding protection now are the same ones who said they'd rather face a bear. They'll know that the society begging for sacrifice now is the same one that made sacrifice a one way obligation with zero reciprocity. And most importantly, they'll know one unbreakable truth: no man owes his life to a civilization that spent his entire existence trying to destroy him. That's the red line now. That's the line that will never be crossed again. You can call him selfish. You can call him immature. You can call him any name you want. He's heard them all before. He's immune. He's got 500 pounds on his deadlift, a 7 figure net worth, a passport full of stamps, and a circle of brothers who would die for him before they'd ever ask him to die for a society that hates them. And he's not coming back. Not for tears, not for guilt, not for duty, not for the children, not for anything, because he finally understands something his ancestors never had the luxury of understanding. His life belongs to him, not to women, not to children who aren't his, not to a government that taxes him into oblivion, not to a culture that celebrates his destruction. His life belongs to him and the men he chooses to ride with. That's it. And once a man internalizes that, once it moves from his head to his bones, there is no force on earth strong enough to drag him back into the cage. Not laws, not threats, not social pressure, and not even violence. Because a man who has found peace will burn the world down before he surrenders it again. That's the new archetype. That's the new masculine standard. Not the nice guy who finishes last. Not the provider who gets discarded the second he's no longer useful. Not the hero who dies so everyone else can live badly. The new man is the one who lives well and lets the chips fall where they may. He's calm, he's strong, he's wealthy, he's kind, but only to those who deserve it. He's lethal when necessary, and he's completely, totally, irreversibly free. And there are more of him every single day. That's the part that cannot be stopped. Every time another woman posts a crying video, another 10,000 men wake up. Every time another article calls them losers, another 10,000 men hit the gym harder. Every time another politician tries to shame them, another 10,000 men buy another ounce of gold and another plane ticket. It's exponential now. It's unstoppable. It's beautiful. And when the history books are written about this period, if there are still history books, they will not talk about the women crying in their cars. They will talk about the greatest male exodus in human history. They will talk about the moment men stopped arguing and started leaving. And they will talk about the moment the most dangerous creature on the planet, a man with nothing left to lose, realized he actually had everything to gain by walking away. And they will record in stunned disbelief that the entire modern world learned the hardest lesson any civilization can ever learn. You cannot hate men into sacrificing for you. You can only love them into it, or trick them, or force them. And all three options expired in the early 2020s. The love was killed by ideology. The trick was exposed by the internet. The force was neutered by passports, crypto, and remote work. And now there's nothing left. Nothing but the sound of millions of male footsteps walking away from a burning building they didn't start and have zero intention of putting out. So when the lights go out for good, when the water stops running, when the trucks stop rolling, when the grocery stores are empty and the streets aren't safe anymore, remember this moment. Remember that men didn't do this out of spite. They did it out of clarity. They did it because they finally saw the game for what it was. They did it because someone had to draw the line, and they were the only ones strong enough to do it. And when that day comes, when the last excuse is gone and the last lie is exposed, there will be only one question left to ask. Was it worth it? Was destroying masculinity to prove a point worth destroying civilization? Was trading real men for hashtags worth trading safety for chaos? Was choosing the bear worth discovering that the bear doesn't pay the bills? History will record the answer. And the answer will be no. 1,000 times no. Because men are not coming back. Not today, not tomorrow, and not ever. They found their peace, and they're keeping it. So to every man watching this right now, I want you to hear this loud and clear. You owe society nothing. You owe women nothing. You owe the past nothing. And your only obligation is to the man you see in the mirror and the mission in front of you. Build your body, build your wealth, build your brotherhood, and build your freedom. And when they come for you, and they will, when they beg, when they cry, when they threaten, when they try every trick in the book to pull you back into the plantation, look them dead in the eye and say the four most powerful words in the English language. I'm not going back. Not my problem anymore. Then turn around, keep walking, and never look back. Because all roads lead to MWA. Men walking away. That's the future. That's the winning side of history. And brothers, we're already there. Now I want to hear from you. What did you think about everything we just went through? Do you agree? Do you see it playing out in your own life, your city, your country? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's get this conversation going. Like the video if you liked it. Don't forget to subscribe. And if this one hit hard, share it with every man who needs to hear it. And just remember, all roads lead to MWA, men walking away. Cheers.
Nothing says you care like crypto. Nothing can compare. Nothing says you care like crypto. Oh, nothing can compare to crypto.